Hi, everyone. I'm back and I brought a friend with me. For the second part of the session, Developing and Registering an Apprenticeship Program, we have Lauren Smith from the Department of Labor who will provide information on viewing standards of apprenticeship through the eyes of a registration agency. Lauren will be on in a few minutes and will tell you a bit about herself, but for now, let's do the session overview. So today what we're going to be covering is the group-sponsored Registered Apprenticeship Program and how that's developed and registered. And then Lauren will take over by providing the strategies that will lead to a yes when you submit your standards of apprenticeship. So first, as always, a quick recap of what Ben went over with you today. So Ben talked to you about the development of a registered apprenticeship program and how to explore to make that the most successful program that it can be. Discovering your partner agencies and who it is that you want to partner with to be sure that everything is in its place and runs properly and smoothly. A build out of the 7 key aspects of the program, as long as registering your program with a qualified agency and then launching your program. So my ask would be, what considerations need to be made? What steps will you take to initiate and then accomplish each of these tasks? So really making sure that you think everything through. And I've had you write a number of things down as I've gone through with you the various sessions and talking about the various aspects of registered apprenticeship programs. So hopefully you've kept all of your notes because they're all going to come in handy. Now I know that Ben likes to give you quizzes. So first we're going to recap the quiz that Ben gave you before we get into this particular session. So in session 5, he asked you 3 questions. He wanted you to describe the difference between an occupation, an industry, and a sector. And then he asked you to name 4 of the 12 high-demand industries outlined in Apprenticeship USA. And he asked you to select one related instruction method, whether it be in-house, out-of-house, or hybrid, and describe benefits for the specific method that you chose. So let's see how you did. Describing the difference between an occupation, an industry, and a sector. Are these the types of things that you put down? So for an occupation can be many types of occupations within a single industry, a specific job or profession, and data is tracked by ONET, SOC, the SOCs, and can be associated with multiple industries or sectors. For industries, generally composed of multiple organizations, contain various occupations, and the data is tracked by NAICS. And then sectors, segment of the economy that contains similar industries, contain a multitude of industries, grouped based on commonalities among industries and data tracked by NAICS. So hopefully you had some, if not all of that information in each one of those sections. Then he asked you to name 4 of the 12 high demand industries outlined on Apprenticeship USA. Did you have at least 4 of these? In his last question, he asked you to select one related instruction method and describe the benefits for the specific method you chose. So if you chose in-house, hopefully you had some of this verbiage. The apprenticeship sponsor has instructors on staff, can be more supportive of specific workforce needs, less commute time, can avoid transportation barriers. Out of house, community colleges, technical schools, apprenticeship training schools, or online. Curriculum may already be developed. Learn from other organizations and exchange ideas, and may leverage more funding opportunities. And then the hybrid is a leveraged knowledge from multiple organizations, and it can decrease commute time as well, depending on how you set it up. Okay, let's get started. So today I'm going to talk to you about a group-sponsored registered apprenticeship program. I've already given you some information on how some of this is developed. We're going to go into it a little more in depth today. So the apprentices are enrolled in a group-sponsored model when they're not sponsored by the employer. And I'll tell you why that may be an advantage for an employer in a minute. So the apprentices work for the employer that participates in the group-sponsored apprenticeship program, but the group itself is the sponsor, not the employer for that particular apprentice. So one of the things we need to talk about is that the difference between the group sponsor model and the individual model is that the employer will not be meeting with the apprenticeship office for visits about apprenticeship files. The group sponsor will. So there needs to be good communication between the employer, the sponsor, and the related instructional provider. I'll take a few minutes here to go through each of these slide areas that I just talked about. So in this first one, we talk about employer prospecting. What can that look like? I'll talk a little bit about direct referrals, and then the employer engagement itself, educating the employer, discussing the standards of apprenticeship, and then the paperwork as far as prior credit, agreement addendums, and standards of apprenticeship. Chances are that when the standards of apprenticeship were being developed, they were vetted by employers. Remember, those standards include language on apprentice selection, on-the-job learning, grades, attendance, etc. So those employers are a good place to start when looking to build a registered apprenticeship cohort. And you can also use databases, hold information sessions, either one-to-one or as a larger group event. The employers who vetted and helped establish the group sponsor model could refer others as well. And all the partners I spoke of in the previous sessions could act as referral partners. For employer engagement, you'll use the best methods for your locale. Is it social media? A kickoff event? You know your employers best. What do they respond to? I mentioned employers and vetting standards of apprenticeship. Having them involved from the beginning can make a big difference between a successful registered apprenticeship program and one that an employer feels needs modified. Does the occupation match up with the gaps an employer needs filled? What does the competency list look like? And how is the mentor addressing on-the-job learning? These are all things you need to consider. This may be when you want some added assistance from your state and or Department of Labor apprenticeship partners. Who will provide the related instruction? And what will that look like? Will it be online, in person, or a hybrid? Be sure you check with your state on the education provider restrictions or requirements, because depending on the state, there may be different parameters. You want to look to see who it is that's qualified to provide the instruction. So that's very important to consider when you look at your registered apprenticeship program and the providers for your instruction. You will use those standards of apprenticeship to educate your employers. And don't forget to emphasize the importance of good, consistent communication. Apprentices need to know from the get-go that the employer is investing in them and that there's a big commitment to a registered apprenticeship program, because classes need to be attended and on-the-job learning will be watched for competency. Be sure that the apprentice is well aware of all that is expected. How many days per week will they have to attend classes? And how many hours are each of those classes? Look at all the items on this slide. Really consider everything that's being mentioned here on this slide, because that's going to make a difference when you're doing your group apprenticeship program. Paperwork will include completing prior credit documentation when the apprentice has attended schooling and completed related instruction course that match the registered apprenticeship program. The apprentice signs an agreement with the sponsor. There's paperwork between the employer and the sponsor registers the apprentice in Rapids. So here what we're talking about is making sure that you have all your paperwork completed. That prior credit can be very important because it saves time and money when we talk about supplemental education that needs to be had for the registered apprenticeship program. And you want to make sure you have an agreement addendum. You want to make sure that not only does the employer who's involved in the sponsorship have, the standards of apprenticeship, but also that apprentice does, so that they fully understand what it is that they're getting into when they decide to get into an apprenticeship program. And then there will be visits from your state or your DOL representative to make sure that your files are in order and that everything is in place as it should be when you are the sponsor of a registered apprentice. And then just that overall a commitment, making sure not only the apprentices, but what about the mentor? What about the person who's doing that on-the-job learning? Are they committed? Do they understand what it is that they have to do to make sure that that apprentice is getting the competency and the skills that they need to be successful? And then communicating well with all of the partners, making sure that any partner that is involved knows what's going on and that everybody is on the same page as things move along. So with that, what I'm going to do is now turn this over to Lauren, who's going to talk to you about strategies that lead to yes. Lauren?
Thank you, Vicki. It's a pleasure to be here to share all of this with you. So what we're doing here today is we're going to go through some program basics, things that are very important to developing your program. I'm going to give you a couple of tips and clues that might help you to be more successful. We'll talk about minimum requirements and how to hire all of your apprentices and how you're going to select once you have a pool of applicants. Who are you going to select and how are you going to do that? And then I'd like to talk to you for just a moment about competency-based programs. There's some guidelines that might help you to really develop some really strong programs, and I want to share those with you today. So next slide. All right. So on the left-hand side, I have a quick checklist. And where I got this checklist is I went through the standards of, or the regulation for the standards of apprenticeship and outlined just a couple of things that are listed there with some specific requirements. So the term of the apprenticeship, how long is it going to be? How you're going to deliver your program, on-the-job learning outlines, related instruction outlines, the mentor to apprentice ratio, the qualifications of your instructors, probationary periods. I'm going to look for your wage progressions. I'm going to look to see that safety training, whether it's embedded in your related instruction or your job outlines. I'm going to make sure that there's some indication of safety and how safety is conducted in your business. Anti-harassment trainings, advanced credit or placement, an EEO contact person. The reason that we are setting this all up is each of these blocks that you see here on the left is actually a part of what is going to be placed into your standards of apprenticeship. So the regulation outlines the parameters. The standards of apprenticeship determines all of the things that you've selected for your apprenticeship program. And then I want to tell you just a moment about the quality evaluations that we do. Approximately at the end of 1 year, we will talk to apprenticeship programs to see how things are going. And we're going to talk about each of these blocks that are indicated here on the left. What we really want to know is, how are things going? Are there things that you want to change about your apprenticeship program? Are things going particularly well and you have maybe best practices that we could share with others? Or are things really becoming challenging? And what services and support systems can we develop through our office and other support systems in the apprenticeship system to help you to become successful? So although we're looking at the regulation, these are all basic things that you will find make an apprenticeship program very successful. On the other hand, there are things that overarching ideas that we are looking for. So safety. When we talk about safety, we tend to think about the physical safety of your apprentices. But have you given any consideration to the emotional, the social interaction, confidentiality issues of an apprentice? For example, if you have an apprentice who has a disability, that is not everybody's business. So we would advise you to make sure that that file remains confidential and that information is not shared with others. Instruction should be relevant to the on-the-job learning. meaning what you learn in the classroom is what you're going to demonstrate in on-the-job learning. Other things that we might be looking for is when you set up your statements, we are looking for activities. What is it the apprentice is going to do? And are they evaluated on the job? So activities are evaluated on the job and should be SMART. They should be very specific. They should be measurable. They should be attainable. They should be relevant to the job. And time-bound is something that is specific to an apprenticeship program, because you don't want an apprentice someone to remain an apprentice, so to speak, longer than they need to. So time-bound, even in a competency-based model, may have parameters that say, for example, it takes this long, and industry has confirmed it takes this long to be proficient in this particular occupation. We are looking for gaps in learning. So maybe you learn some things in the classroom or in the supplemental instruction, but the only way to learn a particular topic is on the job. We look to see if it's not in the instruction, is it found in the job and what they're doing? If not, can we teach it in the classroom, or would we prefer to teach it on the job? So we look for those gaps in learning, because there's nothing worse than an apprentice that gets to a particular part of their job and they've never been taught how to do it. Not only is this a safety issue in some cases, but it's just not really good for morale. People like to know what the expectations are, and apprenticeships are designed to make sure that apprentices are fully qualified and proficient in their jobs when they complete. We look for alignment with credentials. There's something in apprenticeship that allows you to stack credentials. You've already learned that you can receive a Department of Labor certificate of completion. But is it possible that there is an industry credential that you could layer on top of this that would allow an apprentice to be certified or licensed in a particular area? We want to be sure that when we design the program, that they don't have to do anything extra to complete the additional credentials. We build it into the program. And if we see that there's an opportunity for business, we are going to recommend layering or stacking of credentials. We also are looking for apprentice outcomes. We want to be sure that whatever the apprentice is doing or should be able to do, that they are actually able to demonstrate that on the job. Next slide, please. One of the biggest places where people get really tangled up when developing their standards of apprenticeship is minimum requirements. We have an EEO regulation, and I've given you a link down below on the left-hand side to our EEO web pages. And some of the protected characteristics of persons that we are concerned about are the characteristics are age, disability, genetic information, national origin, race and color, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. So when you set your minimum requirements, we're looking to see if that particular requirement is really necessary to do the job. But even more than that, we're looking to see if inadvertently we have eliminated a particular group of people from your apprenticeship program. We're looking to make sure that your talent pool is very large and wide, and that you have opportunity to choose from all of those different populations. So here's a very simple example. Apprenticeship requires someone to be 16 years old to participate in a registered apprenticeship program. You know, between 16 and 18, many students are still in high school. So if you set a requirement that says you want only students that are 18 years or older, that's going to eliminate some of the population that you could be developing for your apprenticeship program. So on the one hand, younger folks between 16 and 18 may be eliminated from your pool simply because you have said that you want somebody who's 18 years old. Is it necessary to be 18 years old to perform the job? Is it possible that somebody in high school might be able to work for you part-time to gain credit toward a registered apprenticeship program? That could be done either as a pre-apprenticeship program or as a registered apprenticeship program on a part-time basis. Other things we're looking at are education requirements. Does someone have to have a high school diploma? Is it required for the job? If not a high school diploma, could a GED or a high set work in the same way? Is it possible that somebody without a high school diploma could do your job with the proper training? Testing requirements. We are looking for testing that is done before hire to be both validated and available or accessible to everybody who needs to take the test. So when we are talking about accessible, somebody with a disability may be eligible to get some kind of accommodation to take that particular test. We might want to put that in the standards of apprenticeship. Citizen requirements. What are the requirements in order to work in your organization? Is it that they have to be a citizen, or could they be on a particular visa of some kind that allows them to work in your environment? Language requirements. I caution you on this. It is important to speak English in many organizations in the United States. However, is it necessary to have a proficiency in our language in order to do the job you're asking them to do? If not, is it possible that there's a workaround? Is there some kind of translation that can be done to complete the job? Is there some other way that somebody who is not fully proficient in English could do the job that you're asking? Other things that we look for, physical requirements. In some cases, I've seen something that says, you must be able to lift 70 pounds in order to complete this job. Well, does that mean 70 pounds of dead weight? Does that mean that you can use a dolly? Is there other equipment that would allow you to move 70 pounds without having to lift it by yourself? Is that something that is required for that particular job? Driver's license. If driving is not part of the job that you are hiring for, a driver's license is only necessary to get to the job and to get to supplemental instruction. I caution you about saying that a driver's license is required as a minimum requirement simply because there's public transportation, there is carpooling, and there's the opportunity to have someone else drive you to both on the job learning and to the supplemental instruction. So we look for those kinds of things that eliminate people because of socioeconomic status, because of age, because they are not traditionally known as someone who can lift 70 pounds, maybe an elderly person, or somebody who maybe is a woman and very small. Is there an accommodation that we can make? We also have some things that we look for with regard to post-hire. So if you have minimum requirements that have background checks, we like to see those included in the minimum requirements. Also, drug testing. If you do drug testing, be sure that your drug testing is in compliance with the federal requirements for drug testing in the workplace. SAMHSA, HSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, is a great place to go to find out about drug-free workplaces and the testing that can be conducted. We do not want to discriminate against people who are in recovery and returning to the workplace as long as they are still in recovery. So we want to be sure that those drug tests are going to help more than hinder someone getting into a job place. Next slide, please. Selection procedures. So you have brought in a pool of candidates, and one of the ways that we are looking to make sure that you're getting the best talent pool possible is to first discover how you're doing outreach. Outreach has changed significantly, so just posting a job is not going to be quite enough. Is it possible that you could do outreach to places like vocational rehabilitation to hire people with disabilities? Maybe you have a population of Native American Indians in your population. Is there some place that you can do outreach to include those people in your search for your company? Job postings, although it's not part of selection procedures per se, we do have an EEO statement that says that we do not discriminate against these protected characteristics. And we ask that you put them on all job postings. On applications, we want to make sure that the application is the same for every individual applying, that the online application is the same as a handwritten application, that if somebody is not able to use an online application for some reason, that there is a paper version or some other way to apply for that position. Interviewing process, we want to make sure that the same questions are asked of every applicant, that you have an evaluation system for evaluating the apprentice itself. And there are a number of ways, and I'll talk about these in just a moment, that you might select your candidate for your apprenticeship program. This is all assuming that you've got lots of people who want to join your company and you can only take a few. So these are other things. These are basic concepts we're looking for. We're looking to make sure that everything that is used to recruit and hire an apprentice is facially neutral and does not have a disparate impact. So that means that on the face, for face value, everything looks to be open to anybody who would like to apply. And the disparate impact is that somehow we have inadvertently created a situation where somebody has been eliminated from your talent pool. I think that we've discussed some of those things, so I'm not going to go into that too deeply. I have a definition of disparate impact from one of the flyers from our website, and it says it has a disparate impact if it adversely affects one group of people of a protected characteristic more than another, even though the procedure or practice is neutral in form. The other thing that I want to point out is that there are many ways that you can select from the pool of applicants that you receive. I've listed a few here. It could be first come, first serve selection of eligible candidates. So maybe the dates are on the applications and you choose the best applicant based on who came first and has met all of your requirements. The selection from a pool of eligible candidates on the basis of rank order of the scores on one or more qualifications. So maybe you have a test for math. There you have a score, and then they have the interview, and you are looking for particular things, and there's a score for that. You have to have a way to pull those things together to make sure that every applicant gets the same opportunity to participate in your program. There is the random selection from a pool of eligible candidates. One of the things we hear quite often is best fit. Their personality or their characteristics fit best with your organization. You have to outline how that best fit matches your organization. You can select from a pool of candidates from your own company. So you could have 10 people internally apply and 10 people externally apply, and you decide that you want to use half and half. You have to have a way of hiring from within. You have to have a way from hiring without, and they have to be consistent. Obviously, the person from within is going to have more qualifications in terms of understanding your organization and how it works, but you want to have that somewhat neutral in terms of allowing people from the outside to participate as well as people from the inside if you choose to. And then there's direct entry into the program. I'm not sure that that's been discussed in previous slides. However, that is if you have a pre-apprenticeship program and you make an agreement that anybody who completes that pre-apprenticeship program will be interviewed for your organization, those people can move directly into your apprenticeship program because they have completed the pre-apprenticeship program. I have put a few more EEO connections for you on the slide so that you can go there and do a little research on your own. There is quite a lot of information about equal employment opportunity, as well as things like selection procedures. There is a beautiful one-page outline that you can get from our website. So next slide, please. One thing I want to dispel in everyone's mind is that competency-based learning is just a shortcut to the completion of an apprenticeship program. I would argue that that could be a huge mistake. Competency-based is based on not only what an apprentice can do, but how the apprentice does what they do. So you see in my diagram here that there's two circles, and one circle's representing what you do, and the other is how you do it, and the apprentice is in the center. As those two bubbles come closer and closer together, the apprentice in the middle grows larger and larger. And ultimately, what you really want to have is an apprentice with both of those bubbles overlapping upon one another. So it's not just about what they do, the tasks they complete. It is how they execute the tasks of their job. I'm going to give you an example that maybe some of you are not thinking about. But if you are a nurse and you have to give a shot, you can come in and simply give the shot. But how you do that can make a huge difference in the outcome for the patient. So if you come in, you explain, yes, this is a shot for a particular thing that you need. We're going to give you a shot. It's going to hurt a little bit, but we'll make sure that it doesn't hurt it too much. And if you have any questions, let's talk about it now. That is a different approach from coming in saying you need a shot, giving somebody a shot, and having them, wondering what happened. So you want to really focus on things like, how do you do it? The bedside manner of a nurse can be very, very significant to their ability to do their job. So regulation says, and I'm going to give you the regulation because I'm going to talk more about the other things that you'll want to consider. It's very broad. The program standards must address how on-the-job learning will be integrated into the program, describe competencies, and identify an appropriate means of testing or evaluation for such competencies. So I just want to tell you a few things I know about competency statements. I do have a background in education, and there are a few things that might help you to really develop a strong competency-based program. They are not designed on time. We do have an industry standard that we use that will tell us approximately how time an average person would take to complete a competency-based learning model. But you're going to have your superstars, and you may have some people that are going to need some extra work. The outcome is going to be the same. They are both going to be proficient in their job. One may take longer than the other. And competency-based learning allows for that deviation for apprentices not to be cookie cutter, apprentices, but someone who can really excel if that's what they want to do. Or if somebody has a disability and it takes them longer to learn the material, they can be equally as good for you, but they may take a little bit more time. So competencies are about people. They are not about occupations. What I mean by that is the people who are most successful in their jobs tend to have qualities above and beyond what we think of as technical competencies. So you're going to focus on the desired performance outcomes. You're going to focus on that nurse and how she executes the tasks of her job. Apprentices must be able to demonstrate competency. Demonstrate is the key phrase here. So some of the things that help me when I'm designing competency-based models is to use the phrase, the apprentice will, and then begin the next statement with an action verb. The apprentice will communicate with their supervisor every day at the end of their shift. The apprentice will, let's see, sign out using a time clock every day. These are things that you can do, you can put into your apprenticeship program that are specific to your organization. And it helps to build the culture of your organization because you're telling them exactly what they will do and you'll tell them in action verbs. So it's not about what the apprentice will be able to do, because that's about the potential of the apprentice, not the demonstrated ability of the apprentice. As I said, technical competencies are great. You want to make sure they have all of the technical competencies necessary for this job. But what I want you to think about is not only what an apprentice will do, but how they will do it to best meet the performance outcomes you have outlined for all of your apprentices in your program. You're going to incorporate, or you could incorporate, specific behavioral competencies that you want to develop for your organization. If DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, is something you want demonstrated day in and day out at your organization, you can build that right into the standards of apprenticeship. As a matter of fact, I would encourage you to build it into the standards of apprenticeship. You can include things like interpersonal behaviors. How do they get along with others? What behaviors do they demonstrate that help them to be successful in their occupation? Do they ask questions? Do they refer to their supervisor? Do they know how to do the research that they need in order to find the answers to solve problems? There might be reasoning questions or things that you want to address. What are the things that they're going to have to do to solve problems, to make decisions, to understand when something is a safety issue and they simply need to stop something that they're doing? You can start building leadership competencies. I include leadership competencies today because just remember, the apprentices that you are training today are going to not only be the mentors for the next group of apprentices coming in, but they are potentially the leadership that is coming up through your organization to make things better for everyone. So I have completed everything that I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to turn it back to Vicki, who has a few things to say before we leave. And I wish you great luck in developing apprenticeship programs. It's an awesome program and is really great for everyone involved.
Thank you, Lauren. Well, there's no quiz today. I did want to say that. No quiz for this session. But think about all those things that Lauren just talked about, all of that valuable information. It really wraps up nicely the things that we've talked about so far. And so I'm hoping that you took some good notes so that you can make sure that you can get to the yes when you submit and it's looked at by the apprenticeship offices. And so Lauren has provided lots of detail. And I want to make sure that you really paid attention to what it is that she's saying. There is great information here. And although we don't have a quiz, I think it would be very helpful if you wrote the things down that Lauren has talked about. We will provide as well the PowerPoint presentation to you after the sessions. But I did want to let you know that this information is so valuable, and we're very fortunate that Lauren was able to join us today to be able to go through some details and things that we provided at a higher level that she has really dug down deep so that you can better understand it. I do want to remind you that our last session will be creating an impactful registered apprenticeship program. That will be Ben providing that tomorrow. And then I'll be on live to answer questions. So keep in mind that if you've had any questions as we were going through today, go ahead and put those in the chat. We're going to collect all of that information, and I'll make sure that I answer things live when we're on tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.